In this video, we'll work on Ruth chapter 2, verses 13 and 14. Generated text is identical. Okay, comfort. I don't think we'll need this rule. Generated text is identical. And you spoke to me kindly. And you spoke kindly to me. Okay, this is a little better. And you spoke kindly to me. Okay, we have kindly set to clause final. Let's look at how kindly is used. We can see all of the occurrences of this word. If we say, edit this concept's collocation correction rule, show all occurrences of concept. So treat kindly. John treated Mary kindly. So we do want kindly to be clause final. John talked kindly to Mary. John acted kindly. Okay, for act, we definitely want kindly to be post-verbal. John acted kindly to Mary. John acted to Mary kindly. No, that's strange. John talked kindly to Mary. John spoke to Mary kindly. John spoke kindly to Mary. I think, okay, for treat, we want kindly to be clause final. John greeted Mary kindly. John greeted kindly. No. Okay, for treat and greet, we want kindly to be clause final. But for these other verbs, John acted kindly to Mary. For these other verbs, we want kindly to be post-verbal. So let's change kindly to post-verbal. We can double-click there and change kindly to post-verbal. But then we'll write a rule that says when the verb is treat or greet, then we'll shift kindly to clause final. Okay, so now it's post-verbal. So now this sentence should be fine. Okay, generated text is identical. But now that other sentence, you treated me kindly. Okay, now this one won't be right. I hope that you'll continue treating very kindly me. Okay, so when the verb is treat, we want kindly to be clause final. So let's edit this theta grid adjustment rule. Okay, right now we're not using this rule. Let's activate it. And add this adverb phrase. And we'll shift kindly to clause final. Let's make a note. Okay, now this one is good again. Okay, so let's continue going. We've done this one. We've done this one. Okay, that's the last one. Let's do the full verse. Okay, generated text is identical. Let's save it and go to verse 14. Okay, eat. I don't think we'll need this rule. When Boaz and his workers started eating food, and the food is marked as implicit. If we look here, okay, the phrase is tagged as an implicit argument. So let's go to the rule for eat and say when the patient is tagged as an implicit argument, then we can delete it like that. Okay. Generated text is identical. Generated text is identical. Okay, dip. We've dipped the bread in the wine, so we need the preposition in. Generated text is identical. Sit down. Okay, first, let's edit this. We want down to be a modifier. This won't be a modifier that moves to the object NP. It'll be a post-verbal modifier. Sat. Have sat, is sitting, he sits. And let's edit the theta grid adjustment rule. I don't think we'll need this. Generated text is identical. Roast. I don't think we'll need this rule. Then Boaz gave some grain that was roasted to Ruth. Then Boaz gave Ruth some grain that was roasted. Okay, this is better. Here, okay, if the object noun phrase includes a relative clause, then it's heavy. And we tend to shift the heavy constituents to the end of the sentence. So, if the object has a relative clause, then we want the indirect object to be fronted. So let's write a rule that will do that. This will be a noun phrase issue, triggered by noun phrases. Okay. If the object NP includes a relative clause and the indirect object doesn't have a relative clause, then front the indirect object. So let's put in two noun phrases. And we'll insert a subordinate clause here. Just let's tag these. So this is the object, and this is the indirect object. The object phrase includes a relative clause. We can tag this as a relative clause, but it doesn't matter. There's only one type of clause inside a noun phrase, and that's a relative clause. So this is fine. And we want to say the indirect object doesn't include a relative clause, so we'll tag that as not present. Okay, so when that's the case, we want the indirect object to be fronted, and we can do that by setting a new grammatical relation. Okay, right now we don't have a grammatical relation called fronted indirect object. So let's add one. We go to noun phrases, grammatical relation. I'm going to add fronted indirect object here. So I'll click here and push the insert key on my keyboard. There. And let's add an example. Okay, let's test that. Okay, there. Okay, Boaz gave Ruth some grain that was roasted. Ruth is bolded because we put these markers there. So that's a fronted indirect object. So now we have that new grammatical relation, and now we can check that here. So if this object noun phrase includes a relative clause and the indirect object doesn't have one, we will tag this indirect object, we'll change it to a fronted indirect object. Okay, so our indirect object is now, okay, it's tagged as a fronted indirect object, but it's here at the end, after the period. If we rest our cursor here, inserted at end by phrase structure rule clauses generic rule 1. Now we need to tell the phrase structure rule for clauses where to position this fronted indirect object. So let's go to our phrase structure rules for clauses. And in the main clause, let's insert a new constituent. It will be a noun phrase, a fronted indirect object. Okay. Let's position this right before the object. Okay, then Boaz gave to Ruth some grain. Okay, when we front the indirect object, we no longer need that preposition to. So let's go back to our rule, and let's insert the preposition to into the indirect object. And then the output structure will delete it. So now we're deleting the preposition to that's in the fronted indirect object. Generated text is identical. Okay, full. I don't think we'll need this rule. Okay, generated text is identical. No issues. And Ruth still had more grain, and she still had more grain. Okay, that's fine. That's the last sentence. Come here and eat bread. Come here and eat bread. Okay, the MTT combined these two short, simple sentences. Come here and eat bread. So let's combine those. We can find them here. Okay, and. Okay, so here we have this short, simple, it's an object complement clause, as we see there. It's the beginning of a direct quote. So if the beginning of a direct quote has a short, simple sentence, and the next sentence is also a short, simple sentence, let's combine them into one. So we combine our sentences here. We already have one rule here. Okay, this structure will combine two sentences if they have the same subject. Let's do that index. Okay, this one, if there are two sentences and they both have the same two subjects, I and J, this one will combine them. Okay, this one combines them if they have the same subject and they're joined with then rather than and. Okay, this one, if the first sentence is implicit but the second sentence isn't, then don't combine them. Okay, so we want to put our new structure before this structure. We want to keep this one the last. Remember, these structures are executed from the back to the front. So, we don't want to disturb this one. Let's go here. Okay, right now, we're on the third structure out of 4, 3 out of 4. Let's copy this. And now we're on the fourth structure out of 5. So this is the copy. So, let's say, okay, let's delete this for now. Okay, we want to say that this first sentence has the beginning of a direct quote, so it will be an object complement clause. And let's put in the opening quotation marker. Quote begin right there. Okay, and if this next, so now the next sentence has the same subject as in the direct quote, and we want the word and in here. And we want to join them. Now we don't want to move this into this clause, we want to move it into this this object complement clause. Let's say move, and we click here, and now the move button has been changed to insert. Now we'll click here. So now this will be moved into here. These are sentences 1 and 2. Okay. Okay, generate text is identical. Let's save it. And we've made some significant changes. It's time for us to go back and regenerate all of our text. So check multiple texts. And now we're up through Ruth 2:14. Okay, and I'll time-lapse this. Okay, so we have some issues here. Don't call me, comma, Naomi. Okay, call me, comma, Mara. Because. Okay, these quotation marks are triggering the capitalization process. And this opening quotation mark is inserting the comma as well. Okay, Naomi means comma sweet. And again, sweet is capitalized. It shouldn't be capitalized. And bitter. Okay. So why should you call me Naomi? Okay, these problems are related to each other. These problems are the same problem in both verses. These single quotation marks are triggering they're putting in a comma, and they're also triggering the capitalization process. So let's go back. Let's go to this verse. Okay, people call me. Okay, we have these particles here. Let's go to the ontology, and I want to show you something for the particles. Okay, all quotations are marked with quote begin. Okay, if it's embedded, then it will be quote begin 1. If it's embedded another level, quote begin 2. These 4 markers are put at the beginning of direct quotes. These 4 markers are put at the end of direct quotes. We have these other particles, single quote begin. They aren't for quotations. Maybe we need a different name, but we call them single quote begin and single quote end. But these are what we put around words like don't call me Mara. But right now, these 2 particles are linked to the same thing, the same particles as these opening quotes that mark true quotations. We need to change that. So let's go back. Okay, so single quote begin doesn't really mark a quotation, but we're using a quotation mark. Let's change this. Let's link this to a different particle. So I'm going to click there and right-click, map this concept to target words. Let's enter a new particle. I'm going to enter that. It's above the tab key. It's sort of like an apostrophe. And we need a new feature value. This isn't a word. It's not an opening quotation mark or closing quotation mark. We need a new value. Let's say edit features. Let's call this opening apostrophe. And we want to delink this opening single quotation mark. So I'm going to click on it. So now the single quote begin, which doesn't really begin quotes. It's more like, don't call me Mara. Okay, now this is linked to just this character here. And, okay, we can't use a closing quotation mark for here. So let's link this character, which again doesn't really end a direct quote. Let's link this to a new character. We're running out of characters here. I'm going to use this. not that. We're going to use this one. Again above the tab key. And then we'll use a find replace rule to change this to something appropriate. Okay, ignore this character. For the phonetic features, not applicable. And again, we need a new feature value for this. So let's say edit features. Let's call this a closing apostrophe. Okay. And again, we want to delink this. Right now, this single quote end marker is linked to 4 and 7. I'm going to click on 4, and that will delink it. So now this is only linked to this tilde marker. Okay. So, now we have these other markers in here. If we generate it now, okay, the phrase structure rules don't know where to put these. So it says inserted at end by phrase structure rule for the noun phrases. So let's go update our phrase structure rule for noun phrases. And let's put a new constituent into this group, phrase initial punctuation. And this will be a particle. It will be our opening apostrophe. Okay, I don't know if it should go before or after that. I'm going to put it after this opening single quotation mark. And while we're here, let's put in the closing apostrophe. So right here, insert new constituent. This will be a particle, closing apostrophe. Okay, I'm going to leave it there before the closing single quotation mark. Okay, getting closer. We need to delete that space, and we need to delete this space. I'm going to copy this character, and in our find replace rules, I'm going to copy this rule. Push the control key. Okay, so we want that space there. I'm going to delete this character and put in that one. And make sure you have a space afterward. And then down here, we don't want a space. Oh, same sentence, don't call me Naomi. And let's write another rule that will delete the space before this character and then convert this character to an apostrophe. That'll be a new rule. We can copy this. Control. Okay, so here we want space and this character and no space afterward. And here, okay, we want to convert this to that character without a space before or after. Okay, don't call me Naomi. Good. This doesn't match the Word document because it's using those old smart quotes. And I won't update the document because then when the video for Ruth 120 would become invalid. So this is fine though. Call me Mara, because the Lord Almighty caused me to become very bitter. But Naomi means, okay, for sweet. Okay, we need to update our phrase structure rule for adjective phrases also. These are being inserted at end by the phrase structure rule for adjective phrases. So let's go to our adjective phrase structure rule. Okay, let's put a new marker into this group. Particle, opening quotation. Okay, Naomi means sweet. Let's put it inside the single quotation mark, and let's put the closing apostrophe marker down here. Okay, that's good. Let's leave it there. Okay, we don't match the word document. We can highlight that character, compare without it, and we can highlight this character. Even though they look the same, they're not exactly the same. Okay. We could ignore these characters, but anyway, don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, because the Lord Almighty caused me to become very bitter. Footnote, Naomi means sweet, but Mara means bitter. Okay, that's good. I'm going to save it. Even though it doesn't match the word document, that's fine. And let's go back here now. Okay, if we regenerate this, okay, so now it matches the save text because I just saved it at that other screen. But this is fine. So let's remove this one. Okay, now this one, don't call me Naomi. Okay, let's regenerate this. Okay, it doesn't match the save text, but so why should you call me Naomi? It's fine. It's just using different markers here. We can't really tell by looking, but they are different markers. So let's save this. Okay. Okay. I would highly encourage you to go back and regenerate all of your text again. I won't do it in this video, but I would highly recommend that you go back and regenerate all of this just to be sure.